Have the pressures of life stresses got you bogged down and depressed? Have you lost your hope to live purposefully? Are you in distress and life seems meaningless and troublesome? It's time to regain your mental wellness and receive power to thresh all anxiety. The IBA Threshing Flow Helpline is here for you. Join us on Hope 103.1 FM every other Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. with me, your host, Bishop Esther Baptiste. So they're fast. Our greetings in the Trirone deity, whose we are and whom we serve. We just thank God for another blessed afternoon, Tuesday afternoon. It's really cool outside, and we thank God for His continued grace over our country and over our island. So we're shouting you out here from the Threshing Flow Helpline. Of course, that's how we do it. We thresh anxiety. In a world full of mental health issues, we have to take a moment to thresh our anxiety. And of course, we're doing so through the Word of God. So here you are this evening joining us on the Threshing Flow Helpline program for mental wellness, of course, with a biblical twist. And we hope that you're able to join us wherever you are. You might be just coming from work. You might be home just trying to prepare yourself some dinner. Whatever the circumstance, wherever you're joining us from, whether it is in the diaspora or here right here on the island, in the Caribbean somewhere, please take a moment, share the life, and do join us. You will not regret. We are continuing our dialogue here on the Fallen Princess. That's the book written by Pastor Ruth Jacob-Roberts on the effects of rape and rape. All right, so we are going to be digging into some more of the fine-tuning aspects of it and the effects of rape today. So let me ask Pastor Ruth to greet us as we begin our program this evening.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this program as we continue to delve into the journey of the Fallen Princess. And we just want to say thank you to all of you who send feedbacks, who get the book, who just really encourage us as we continue just to interact. If you have questions, if you have comments, you can leave your comments and questions on whatever platform that you are viewing from. So it's such a pleasure to be here once again.
And of course, we encourage you as you continue to enjoy these good programs. You can also make a contribution to Hope FM, Hope 103.1 FM, because of course, whatever we do, it takes, finance, it takes money. So we're encouraging you, if you like the programs that are on and you're blessed by it, your family is blessed by it, your home is blessed by it. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're shouting out that our people, they keep us on the air, support the local gospel station. We are very proud of the station. And of course, those behind the scene, they're working tirelessly to make this happen. So whatever you can do to support Hope 103.1 FM. And we're also on 94.1 FM. So in some parts where you get a little switched off, just switch to the next frequency. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can watch us via YouTube and Facebook as well. So yes, we're going into the book. We're digging into chapter 21. For those who may not have been with us for the last couple of weeks and wondering what book, what are you talking about? Of course, it's The Fallen Princess, Bound Only by Silence, Breaking the Chain of Sexual Violence. And this book is local. And of course, Pastor Ruth is going to introduce us. But even before we begin, we want to say that our upcoming Fun Day, IPA Fun Day is up 4th of June. Yes, that's a holiday. And we're inviting all of our IPA churches out there and even churches that support us as partners to join us. We're hoping to do so at the Good Hope playing field. So That's up and coming, so keep your fingers crossed there, and let's have a wonderful time as an IPA body, fellowshipping together and enjoying a wonderful time, especially with our young people, so that they can celebrate Jesus where they are. So we just wanted to shout out that just before we end. Of course, we shout out all of the pastors and congregation of IPA. We have Aptitude, we have Perfect Sanctuary, House of Prayer Sanctuary, Kingdom Missions House, and of course Living Water Sanctuary. And we want to big up all the churches and the members of IPA Grenada. Yes, 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 yes.
Amen. Big up IP. Well, thank you, Bishop Esther. Today we're going to talk about the topic is really continuing on the impact of rape and how it affects people in various walks of life and different ways and different types of experiences, and just helping us to understand. Sometimes it's for you, sometimes it's for someone you know, sometimes it's for someone you are interacting with and you do not even know. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to, to share with you all of the elements of what the Lord has laid upon our heart when it comes to rape and sexual assault. I know in particular it might not be a topic that people like talking about, and some people tend to push it aside, even victims and persons who know victims, because there is a kind of silence, a kind of shame, a kind of shh that surrounds it. But we just want to break that silence, and we want to be able to talk about the issue as a real issue, because it affects us physically, spiritually, emotionally, and otherwise. So for the persons who are still struggling, even if I have not been affected in a direct way, persons around me, we are rubbing off on each other, and we do feel the impact. So it's about just breaking the silence. Today we're going to talk about rape as a stalker. Right, that's the title of chapter 21, Rape is a Stalker. And for those of you who know what a stalker is someone might have had an interest, or somehow, for one reason or the other, wants to just trail a person wherever that person goes. Whatever time the person goes in, the person will, literally, stalk them, as they say, walk behind them, run behind them, drive behind them, whatever, so in order to be able to catch up with that person again, right? So rape has the power to wound us so deeply that it sets victim on a lifelong journey towards wholeness. And I want to pause a little bit, because many persons do not understand that just one experience of rape, sexual assault, touch, group, whatever, can set a person off track, because rape has the unique ability to be able to get on the inside, as if it's getting at the soul, and it changes the emotions, changes the mindset, changes the way they think, the way they feel about themselves, how they interact with others, things they love, things they hate. So one experience, right, can set a person on a lifelong journey, and hopefully for that person of healing, because once the silence is broken and the journey has begun, it's the beginning of the story, and then as that person walks towards healing, there are so many different effects that we have to cover. So we can see the journey that for some never is complete before they self-destruct. For some people, they go on the journey to healing, but some people never ever recover. Bishop, I'm not sure we could pause there a little bit, because one person thinking, okay, they just want to have another person, and whether it's a child, whether it's an adult, or male or female, and because of that person's lust or whatever other reason, that person will just abuse that person in that way. But when that experience is over, it is not over for the victim.
Yes, of course, and I keep saying that sex is not just a physical act in itself. Of course, it is tied into a whole new dimension of authority and power and control, which is tied into our creative function. And when we abuse, anything that you misuse, you will find problems that you're creating for yourself, because if something is designed to function this way or a particular way, and you use it to do something else, you can cause a lot of damage And sometimes we do not take time to appreciate the level of damage that can be done when we misuse, these sexual ability, or I don't know if I want to say ability, but sexual desires that have been put inside of us. Because look at the effect, and this is not just one person's narrative, or this is not just an inference that we are making, but this is a reality. This is a fact, right? That we do not. I was even talking to somebody recently, and I was saying to them, even in the sexual act itself, right? Because of the nature of how this thing impact the whole body, right? Even the experience is not meant to last very long, right? Because you'll kill yourself, literally. And I was saying to the person, do we really take time to research that? We take all kind of enhancing drugs and all kind of aphrodisiacs, and we think we want to last forever. But even the burst in the moment, if it goes on extendedly, we can get heart attacks, we can get all kinds of we can even die. Some people have literally died. Some animals like the frog, when they mate, they literally die. Okay. And so it's not just a physical act in itself, and the longevity of it is really what we call a green light or red light or a white flag to say to you, this is as much as you can take. If you try to extend beyond that, you will die. Literally, you will die. So, wow. And a lot of people don't understand this science, okay? Because you didn't learn that on the streets. The street wouldn't teach you that. Your partner on the side would not teach you that. Even most people don't even know that science. Yeah.
But I will angle like it gradual
Right.
ascension,
Yes.
and then time don't have for the access
Right. That's why you have. That's why you have the built up phase, okay, where we call that what, romance or intimacy. That phase is very important. Care the body, the mind, psychologically and physiologically, because it's hormones that's being activated, right, and stimulated. So even in that, um, we call I don't know phase, but that build up phase, right, that phase where you get in the mood, so to speak, right, it's very important. So when we short circuit that and we just jump ahead, it's like we pull in the trigger before you aim. So it's important to realize that the whole process, the whole act is a process, and not just a one-off, one instance reality. Because God has wired the body so much, and on both fronts, even the female as well, to prepare itself, okay, before you reach the resolution stage, where, and even at the resolution stage, that's why most men, even in history and stories, and you will find they are most vulnerable at that point of resolution, right? So they have to take a rest. Most times they will sleep. Most times they will phase out. They can't make the grade, so to speak, right? Because they have to recoup back for, even if it's 5 minutes, they have to recoup their bodies because of how God wires it. And so the ignorance of even how our body function and the processes, that is why so much damage is created when it is done outside. You understand what I'm saying? Yes.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's exactly it. In fact, like the way the body functions, whether it's for sexual intercourse or any other function, there is always a preparation stage.
Yeah.
And even when we go to eat, when we put food in our mouth, the very act of chewing that food,
Right.
is preparing the food to be palatable, to have the right consistency,
Right.
so that it is able to go down into the different compartment of the stomach,
Right.
and be able to broken down further. In fact, they say digestion is supposed to begin in the mouth.
Yeah.
And the truth is that we do not chew our food long enough for that process to begin.
happen.
So that's why we end up with
Yes.
all kinds of other ailments, because the food is not properly chewed. That's why the teeth is hard. That's why we have the tongue that will kind of create the peristaltic motion. We'll begin the process just allowing the food to be chewed over and over until it almost turns liquid. Then it can go down into, so the body is supposed to prepare the stomach to receive the food, and then it will take care of the acid, it will take care of the alkaline, it will kind of separate everything. The design of the body is just amazing, and every time we go contrary to the natural design of the body, it has not just physical but psychological and emotional effects as well. So in the same way, when the body is meant to be prepared for sex in a certain way, when rape happens, a lot of the times that process is
short-circuited.
So
yes.
it affects every other area of the body, especially emotionally and otherwise. So there is a struggle, there is a resistance, there is pain, there is tearing, there is, if you have to really, paint the picture, so it's almost like you're taking something that is supposed to take its time to stretch, and you're stretch it
like a rubber band,
it can be stretched, right? And then you're stretching it beyond the limit. And sometimes it's rough, sometimes it's very violent, and so on. And so that, for some people, they go through reenactments at night, and and dreams, and it's like a torture for some people. And some people go through that process over and over, sometimes in their mind. Some people even get up hysterical. Some people even go through panting and hyperventilating and all of that, even just thinking about the experience. So this is not something that we can take very lightly. And if it happens to a child, imagine
a
what
child,
that can do to that child.
Yeah.
If it happens to an adult, it is bad. If it happens to a child, you understand how that works.
Because
and
sometimes
it's a big, like an adult male or female would have interrupted this child's system. I remember some time ago there was a young woman who got raped, a little girl. And the doctor said that the rape ruptured some of the organ systems of her body, So this is not something that is to be taken lightly. So we understand that the effects of rape go far beyond the physical. Apart from some, maybe the body might be healed, but the emotional wounds and the fear and all the things that came along with it is something.
Because I think this is important for people to know, because sometimes you tell people about rape or you tell them about sex, but you never really educate people. Because as I wanted to go back to the cycle, the sexual intercourse is a cycle, right? So you have the excitement phase or the arousal phase, and then you have the plateau, you have the orgasm, and then you have the resolution. So you have basically 4 stages where there's the excitement. The excitement is important to prepare the body. Like, for example, we say the women vagina has elasticity. And though it has elasticity to expand or whatever, it has to prepare for expansion. So it doesn't just expand automatically. Even when you're making a baby, right, and the cervix have to dilate, right, it takes a period of time for the cervix to dilate, sometimes like an entire week for the cervix to dilate. In other words, that the capacity and the vagina to expand enough so that that child can be expelled. So imagine if because even in the arousal stage, something happened that prepares the vagina. For example, you have lubrications that's to happen. So the vagina releases this liquid, right? Something like mucus, and that mucus helps lubricate the vagina so that that vagina is ready for penetration. And it also happens with the penis as well, right? Because that's why some people have to use all kinds of lubricants. They have to use all kinds of augments to prepare the body, because we rush things, or we just do things, and we break the phases, right? Because the plateau phase is a place where you're preparing the for penetration, which is intercourse, right? And then you have the orgasm, which a lot of people don't even know what the orgasm is. Right? The orgasm, and then you have the resolution. So the orgasm is that enjoyment time, and then you have the release, what we call orgasm, right? What we call the enjoyment and the release. So if that does not happen in its proper course, right, the body is not still, because for the women, psychologically that stimulation has to happen, right? It's not always just physiological, right? So that's why we say women are more psychological and men are more physical, because men are always ready. Their readiness, it doesn't take too long, because they're born ready, ready. But they still have to go through the preparatory stage, so that they don't damage themselves, or don't hurt themselves, and that they enjoy themselves as it's supposed to be. And then the end product is reproduction. So it's always a reproductive end, right? Because of the releasing of the sperms and so on and so forth, and the egg. So those phases, we have not been taught those things. Even people don't even know what the sexual organs are called, right? And we give all kinds of strange names, because we are very ignorant as how this happened. So this cannot happen in a rush. It has to happen, and that's why God designed it to happen within the bonds of marriage. So it will be, you take your time, you develop. And we're not saying all the time that you may have to go through all the stages necessarily, but your body has to be ready. And if your body is not ready, then even in the consensual aspect, you can still damage yourself, because it's a science, it's we can't beat the science, right? But if we understand the science, right, then these things wouldn't happen. Rape wouldn't happen. So and people become traumatized physically and otherwise. You damage the whole construct, because you yourself don't even understand how you function, okay? And a lot of even men, they don't even understand how they function as well, right? And they don't take time to, these processes too long for them. They get excited quickly.
I think what happens is that the time frame is important.
The time frame
and
is
building a momentum is important, and that is mental in a vast majority of the case. So the mind has to be in alignment with with a desire, what the body wants, and the mind will tell the body. So then the brain will stimulate the necessary secretions to almost like an inviting experience, so that when both the excitement and time come together, then you have a really smooth expression of what the both persons want. So I think at the end of the day, rape now contravene that, right? So it comes without preparation, without acceptance, without without desire. Well, I shouldn't say without desire, because desire might be on one side, and it's kind of like a stolen. It's like a stolen
and that's
experience.
Why it's mutual pleasuring, because it's not just individual.
It's supposed to be mutual.
Because as you say, if I do not consent, it means my body is not going to my body is not going to fall in alignment. And so there's a lot of times where even male counterpart, they don't really enjoy themselves, even if they their wives say, well, okay, I'm ready yet, or they might not be ready, and they still proceed. They still will be cheated of the full measure of the enjoyment, because the woman's mind is not ready, or her mind is not in alignment. Or that's why rape is the impact of the violation, because you're breaking the consent, you're breaking the agreement that is very needed for that whole process to take place.
Right, and that
you're fighting against
that consent is
you're fighting too much. When you're not supposed to be fighting, because this person is like a mannequin, and you just right? So that has to happen on both levels. That's why sex is mutual pleasuring and not just. And of course, we know the demonic element of that. It's going to break everything that God has designed for self pleasure, right? For individualism, right? Because a lot of the case is just the person trying to just release themselves. It's about them. It's about their enjoyment. It's about their pleasure. It's about their. By the other person is just the guinea pig, so to speak. And it's sad because I believe that in our culture, even our Christian culture, we don't go to those levels of understanding, right? How the whole process works and why God created it this way, okay? Because as I say, if you rush it too much, you kill yourself. It's like shooting yourself in the foot, because God designed it in a special way that it has and creates the impact that is needed.
And at the end of the day, people are experiencing this
every day.
This is not like, for some people it's like something they see in a movie, or they don't have a reality of what it is. But when you think they're children, whether boys or girls, they are men and women who are experiencing this on a very regular basis. And at the end of the day, we look at the stalking aspect of rape, because it seemed to me that when a person would have gotten raped at a point in time in their life, almost like there is like a kind of
an aura,
something
that follows
like
them.
I call it a stench, like the dog is on heat, and somehow it follows them for some reason. So the like in the book, she said that there seemed to be a spiritual intelligence,
I like that,
like a transmission network where familiar spirits are assigned stalking duties based on prior or past experiences. Right, the mastermind behind it all is Satan. His strategy is deception, to convince you that what happened has changed who you are, or that you are no longer who God created you to be. And this is a lie, straight, as my mom would say, straight from the pit of hell.
Yeah, but I mean,
so
the
let's
Bible,
talk about
the
this
Bible is not. Bible is clear when it talks about I think it's Romans, was it 6 or 7, where it speaks to the idea of being one with Baal. And he was talking about sexual unions, because it also creates a spiritual connection. So if the spiritual connection is not within God's ordained order, then it is going to be demonically aligned. That is why in the occult, one of the most prevalent things that happen in the occult, more than spells and whatever else, is sexual orgies. If you go back in history for millennia, every society basically struggles along the line of sexual exploitation, sexual pleasure, because there's a pleasure that comes with it. But there's also a spiritual connection that also comes with it. So this is where Satan now comes and align, because you say if you are one with Baal, and he was looking at the context of being one with Baal, which is the idol worship cult, and the God of heaven, right? And once you're united sexually, there is also not just there's a biological thing that happens with reproduction, but there's also a spiritual reproduction that takes place. So that is why demons are transferred. We may not be able to prove that in the Bible, but demons are transferred through sexual experiences, right? More than anything else, right? And so that is why when we look at the stalking aspect of it, right? How do I proved that one time, right? We were looking at the book, and we were reading. I was just reading something, and nobody wasn't reading it. I was reading it. I didn't tell nobody reading it. And then I see certain things play out, and I say, wow, this has to be a spiritual collection. I proved that how it connected, because nobody. So if you decide now you just go and watch pornography, and you sit down and you watch a whole night of pornography, bet your bottom dollar somebody else on the other end is going to find you. That spirit is going to find you, right? All of a sudden, that person will connect with you. They don't even know where you were. They wasn't in your house. but somehow it's a spiritual, as we say, trail that follows you. And all of a sudden, that person is getting excited when they're around you, just for no reason.
So going back to the principle of preparation,
Yes.
it is the same principle.
Same
'Cause
principle.
if like the
Same
it is-
principle.
a
Okay, getting
principle is a
ready for-
principle.
right.
So like once you're ready for
Yeah,
a particular
ready for-
experience,
You leave yourself vulnerable. Yeah.
Like you would the person who has that experience to offer will be drawn to you, and that is universal.
Yes.
Right, that is universal. So I think it was. I don't know. Mean to quote Buddha, but
Buddha.
it was a phrase which says when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive.
Right.
So it's like that same principle of preparation. It comes because God is a God of order,
Yes.
and He does everything in
Yes.
order. So whatever principles that I use, because remember, principles is just like the basis upon which
Everything works,
right?
operates. It's laws in nature.
Right. So
yeah.
once the principle is there, it works in any situation, in any environment. So
True.
if you spend your time feeding on things that are not good,
That's
you
it.
spend your time feeding on social media, especially like you said, pornography,
yeah.
whatever other material. You will notice even an algorithm of the internet itself. It's like you'd realize that you'll be thinking about something, maybe talking
then,
about
yes.
something, and it pops up
Pops up
like
on your
a same
screen.
subject of it pops up in one of the social media posts, or somehow you wonder, well, I was just talking about that some time ago. That's the same principle. You are ready to receive the information, right? So that it's almost like it's drawn from wherever it is, and it comes to you in the same way. Whenever someone has experienced rape for some reason, right, it seems like
Connects
people
them.
are drawn
Yes.
to them in the same kind of a way, especially if it is a situation where it was not dealt with, it was not spoken about, forgiveness didn't happen,
Right.
like the thing is still raw, and it's almost like the scent goes out
Yeah.
somewhere to tell the person, okay, this person is familiar with
Yeah.
this, and if I want it, come to that person, because that person has the capacity to give it unto me. And
because I want to
it's
make
like an
I want to
unspoken,
make a point here,
rule,
because
so to speak.
when we go back to God's creation in Genesis, right? When God made man, right? God gave man and said, okay, name the animals, okay? So all of the animals, they had mates. So female dog, female cat, male cat, and so forth. And the Bible said for Adam there was not a suitable helper, right? Now, if you look again in nature, we had an experience recently with a ram goat. This person had a couple of ram goats, and they were tying it, in the back of the house, just close to us. And what we realized is that when we stand in the veranda, the stench of this ram, people know ram. We just think ram stink, and that is it. But there's this one time I was standing there, and I noticed, even in the ram, that I noticed when it released a special scent, and the scent was pronounced. You could only know that if you're paying attention, right? And it was like extra. And then I realized that the ram goat, the reason why it is so stink is not because it doesn't bathe or whatever, but because it is attracting
Pheromones,
the female,
yeah.
right? So even in the animal kingdom, when mating happens, you could see, if you look at a lot of creatures, right, there is somehow, and we call it a mating season, but there is somehow a dog will live like forever, where quite on the road, and wander quite up the road, right, to find the female dog, right? And nature alone tells us that every time in the animal kingdom there's mating happening, there's always either the male sends out a scent or the female, there's always a behavior, right? There's always something that lets the attraction happens, right? So that mating can begin. And it's a seasonal thing. And in some cases, a man was that. So I think God has wired, because if I prove this a lot of times, even when you are menstruating, right? Or not even before menstruation, when you are, ovulation, that's what I'm trying to say. When a female is ovulating, You don't have to tell a man she's ovulating. That's why a lot of women get pregnant at the first okay, encounter during ovulation, because they know, especially even married people and spouses, husbands, they know when a wife is ovulating. Somehow they don't know it in their head as a science to say put two on one on one, but instinctively they know. I mean, we are not animals, but there's an instinct in the human being. All of a sudden, the girl is looking different. She glowing.
No, actually the blood flows faster.
The blood,
the skin becomes more kind of
clear,
and shining, and so there is almost like an unspoken language going
that's
on,
what we say.
as if like there's a drawing to the person, there's an interest, so to speak. I mean, it's amazing the way God has designed the body, and how the interaction between the male and female is so inspired by God. Is that one is drawn to the other at a particular time. So there is time, a time frame,
and the time frame is important.
The timing is very, very
because what we have not learned to do in our culture is to manage ourselves, to control the time. And so what has been happening is that, young boys, and they have it maybe worse than girls, but young boys, they tend to not know what to do when the feelings come, right? And then their partners, their friends, or whoever else will tell them, "Why go and do this? Go get a girl, hook up with somebody. You have to release yourself, blah blah blah." And those negative encouragements have destroyed a lot of our young people and caused even our marriages to be in jeopardy, because we do not, first of all, learn the spirit of control, because everything is a timing. Everything has to work in a timing. That's why the female has a cycle, okay? And so you have to know the cycle, when it's the peak time, when it's the okay time. And so there's a cycle that's built into our reproductive system, right? Even with the male as well, there's a cycle that is built into the reproductive system, just like in the animal kingdom. And if you look at some of the animal kingdom, I just say nature is explicit, but there's literally sometimes fighting. Look, the eagles. There's fighting literally for dominance in some cases in the animal kingdom, for the female, right? So we, with the intelligence, okay, and God has wired us differently. For everything, God says there was a suitable helper. But for the man, there was not a suitable. He's talking about mating. He's talking about matching them in their sex, male and female, right? So that's what he talks about. The helper was not just somebody who's a slave. Really, it's a suitable match for Adam. Adam couldn't go with a donkey, a sheep, a cow, a fox, right? He had to get of his kind, okay, a suitable mate, so that he can align his sexuality. That's what that verse is really saying. So, so with the intelligence now, he can behave different from the animals. You see? And we have not learned that. And we have still been going about with animal instinct because we are fallen. And that is a problem with humanity. And so the problem of rape is like millennials. You've been having since from the kings of the Babylonians, since from the early empires of Egypt, right now to a modern construct, it's still the same problem. All through century, kings have fallen, mighty men have fallen, women have been abused over the century. When are we going to get it? It's like, but the education of how God wired and the healthy approach that goes into a sexual pleasure, because God put it there. That means He wants you to enjoy it. But again, you're not enjoying it by your own standards, but by the blueprint of God, because He knows how to do it well. So there's no shame. There's no, when we do it right, you ever, wife and husband, you have shame and you have all kind of torture in your mind? No. Without shame, without all these paraphernalia, so to speak, of emotions and all of that, it's not happening when you do it right. Okay? It never happens when sexual intercourse are done correctly. Nobody comes out feeling guilty. Nobody going through mental problems. Nobody going through all these paraphernalia, right? Because God has a blueprint on our sexuality.
Wow. I guess going back to God's order and timing. So there is a way that you do it. Imagine that a child supposed to grow, supposed to develop, supposed to garner enough knowledge about different things, supposed to make friendships and relationships. There's supposed to be a process by which a person grows into a certain mature, state to be able to handle the emotional fallout, so to speak, of the sexual experience. And at the end of the day, it's about timing again. We talk about order, doing it how it's supposed to be done, when it's supposed to be done. Yes. Right? So going back to the script, people become trapped when they choose to remain angry and wounded. Right? Because imagine this thing has happened and the stalker is on the plow. He is looking for someone. Victim. So if he finds a person who has not been healed, who is still broken, a person who is still vulnerable, that unresolved hurt becomes an airport for the demonic spirit. Hey, somebody, let's talk about that.
Let's strive, I always say,
on our vulnerability. An open gateway for the access and habitation. These spirits return repeatedly, repeating similar experiences to maintain their hold on the vessel they have chosen. I kind of went into the thing looking at the news, and this thing came on after a while, and I got caught up in it. It's this young woman. It was like a movie, and this young woman who, beautiful girl, her parents well covered her all her life, and then she went to university and she got involved with this guy. This guy was like a popular guy, very handsome or whatever, and long story short, she got involved with him. Then she wondered why it is that he chose her. Only to find out that the boy was a drug he does drugs on sailing. So he looked for one that was vulnerable, that was insecure. He looked for one, and he will beat her up every once in a while, and he will give her flowers, and she will come back, and the cycle continue. And throughout the process, I ended up having to go to my bed, but like it was so interesting because things like that really intrigues me. And she was wondering why did he chose her. He was able to get her to hide the drugs, was able to get her to transfer something. Then he tell her how much he loved her and what, and she went through that whole cycle. And at the end of the day, it's like when he allowed her to go home, which he was not having her to go home, she went home and she was pregnant, and then she had the baby, and all of a sudden, he convinced her not to talk about what has happened. So through causing him to feel like love, and she feels sorry for him, and it's a whole, so that is how, when there are vulnerabilities, when she said, she felt that he loved her because she was so insecure, and why did this nice guy choose her when he could have chosen some beautiful girl? But he was choosing her because of her vulnerability and the ability that he had the chance to use her in the way he wanted. At the end of the day, she had to go through went to jail and all kind of drama. So the vulnerability from unforgiveness, lack of resolution, lack of justice, lack of being able to deal with the situation makes that person vulnerable for the demonic spirits, as the author says, an airport for and we know what happens at the airport. Planes land, take off, land, take back. They keep coming back and again, So the cycle is not accidental.
Right.
It is deliberate and sustained. These spirits orchestrate connection with spouses, family, friends, and strangers who will continue to abuse, convincing the victim that it is deserved because of the perceived flaw. So like once the rape or the abuse happen, then it causes the victim to feel damaged.
Right.
And as such, they feel that they don't have, like we say, bargaining rights, that they don't have the moral compass to stand up because of what has happened to them. And then, it's kind of like becomes a vulnerability, so they will accept certain things, they will be silent about certain things, because if it happened to you once, it happened to you twice, then people start thinking that something is wrong with you. So even if you complain, people might not be so obliged to think kindly of you, because they say, well, how are you attracting all those people? No, you become the person who has the fault, because well, if that one raped you and this one raped you, then most likely you might have a fault. And that is again a lie from the pit of hell. It's psychological. It's intended to allow you to have this open door so that the spiritual forces can continue to funnel or furnish other rapists to continue to dig the damage deeper and deeper, and causing the victim to feel as if they have even deserve it, because they are not worth as much as they should.
And that is why Satan starts very early in our lives. A lot of these cases of rape and assault is very early, maybe in the first 3 years, 2 to 3 years of an individual's life. You must, 9 out of 10 people really, or maybe 10 out of 10, experience some kind of sexual encounter, whether that means full-blown rape or, some lesser evils on that front. But because Satan is strategic, this is one of his greatest tools, right? And he has corrupted it for millennia. He also used music, but he also used the sexual pleasures.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure about the statistics. It might be, in a way, the idea is really to. I was talking about Sunday. I was talking about Jochebed, that's Moses' mother, on Sunday, and we were talking about wisdom from a mother. And one of the things that I found is that she only had Moses for about 1 to 3 years. Then how it is when Moses was grown, the Bible said he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasure of sin for a season. So how is it that she just had him for 3 years, let's say max, and then he grew up knowing who to choose? So it is a fact that the impact on a human being, right, the way the basis upon which a person will become an adult or adult person begins within what happens within the first 3 years of life. Whatever happens. So imagine that's an abusive experience. Then it literally frames the mindset and so on, attitudes and behaviors for the rest of that person's life. And you can understand the seriousness of why the enemy attacks the children while they're young. He attacked, it was Pharaoh who attacked Moses and the little ones in Moses' day. And Moses survived because the Bible says, she saw the God in him. He was a goodly child. And it was the same Herod who attacked little children when he was trying to get at Jesus. So what is the enemy after? He's trying to get to the young ones when they are very young, when their minds have not been properly framed, so that he can influence negatively the rest of their lives. And this is when we think about it in that light, it is very serious, because our entire generation right, is being forced in a negative direction because of this weapon they call rape and sexual assault. So this is no joke. And for the church, this should not be something we bury under a Bible. It's not something we hide under the pew. It has to be something that we deal as a matter of spiritual warfare, because the destinies of our children are at stake. The future of our children are at stake. The purpose of our children. You understand? At the end of the day, because purpose cannot be destroyed, like ultimately the purpose will be realized. But at the end of the day, the battles and struggle for some people is a lifelong experience, especially if they don't know God in a way as we say, and if they're not able to forgive or to resolve or to talk or to get justice one way or the other, then that becomes a secret. And not just a secret that people don't talk about, it becomes a secret weapon of war that has the potential to destroy generations. Because when the mother experiences it and she passes on whatever she feels to her child, then that's a different kind of abuse, and that could go down the generation. This is not something we should be silent about. This is something that we have to talk about, because it is a matter of life and death, literally.
And of course, as we are getting closer into the carnival season, which is another platform that we use to create excitements in platforms that do not have the proper expressions. So in other words, you wake up sleeping dogs, they're going to bite. Okay, lions are sleeping and you're waking them up when they're not ready. And so all of this hype of, and
Solomon told us don't wake up love before it's time.
if you look at the carnival season, it's just about the excitement, the songs that they sing. They ignite excitement sexually. The music, the way they dressed, even in the juve and even in the mass bands itself, with little or nothing. Again, all of these, when you wake up that in a child or a teenager or a young adult who is not even married, it's like giving a man, giving him a fish and teaching a man to fish and don't give him a pond, right? He's going to find a pond somewhere and fish it. He has a skill, but he doesn't have what it takes. And so all society is kind of doing the backward jilt of that, because we're exciting young people. They have all kinds of films and movies and songs. A lot of the songs, you feel they write a good song, you had to be a love song, a romance song, and you're not married. Okay, so then how are you going to, when you wake up, that emotions on the inside of you, where is the expression? Is either some object, either some vulnerable somebody, and now people are using all kinds of things, and we call it sexual orientations, right? We have just a multiplicity of ways that we want to express the thing that we have no platform to express it. And so that's too is creating, because when your child is growing up, he's trying to strive, but this person have no expression for what they have excited themselves in, and then this child becomes a target because this child is an easy prey because he can't tell nobody, right? Or this woman, sad to say, we had an incident like that just recently again, where another lady lost her life because of, again, this sexual exploitation, right? Poor lady have to lose her life because somebody wake up the lion that they couldn't beat, they couldn't tame. And so when you wake up lions that you can't tame, you became prey. Somebody becomes the prey because the lion is on the loose. I mean, this is just a metaphor to say how dangerous it is. And when young children who do not have the platform, you go to a show and all kind of love tunes, you have nobody to express it. I was at an event last time. I was listening to somebody. They had a radio playing. I can't remember. I don't know which house it was in. And the level of obscenity and whatever else were played. I say, well, how could this person listen to this thing and be good? It's like all songs is love songs. So how could they listen to that for the entire evening and do not feel that they want to express it some way? It's like it go hard for a person to tame that without self-control and without the power of God. Even Christians fail in that regard. So this whole sexual exploitation is two dynamics. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, but if it is exploited beyond God's blueprint, it always creates multiple damages. Not just for the female, but also the men as well. Because men feel, another interesting science is that men, if a man is being raped, it might be even worse than a woman, right? Because again, the cycle of how the men operate, they cannot function in multiple, experiences. They has to have a resolution. They have to revamp, maybe in a day, an hour, 5 hours, or whatever, and then they can come back again. But if that is being forced upon them, then of course that could damage organs, and a lot of things can damage physiologically.
Wow. Yeah. So we're talking about how the person feel about that perceived flaw, and it's said that the flaw becomes a spiritual alignment, a foothold for darkness, and it is designed to kill the fallen princes before they ever realizes that they have a divine purpose, right?
It's
so
like injecting poison in you, and all. I tend to look at
it takes a while to
the venomous snake, right? I studied this one time. I said, my goodness. So the snake will see. Let's say the snake is slithering in the bushes, in the forest, whatever, and suddenly a rat passes by. Okay, a rodent passes by, and the snake will not be chasing the rodent at all. Snake don't chase things really. The movies they don't say much, but the snake they're lazy, so they'll position themselves strategically in a place they know the rodent will pass. Okay, and so they stay there in hiding because they're very quiet, and as they pass, the rodent will pass. It will strike, because if the snake strikes and it doesn't get an impact, it can even die. Okay, so the snake strikes the rodent, and the rodent may feel a little prick something, and he's still jumping, and he's going on the road, and he's jumping and jumping, and then all of a sudden, way down the road, he falls and dies. You know, so sexual exploitation without the proper environment and platform, you are already striked with venom. The venom, if it traces venom in your system, it goes through a prick like a needle, the snake's venom, and the venom finds a vein, and goes to your bloodstream. It goes to your bloodstream until it reaches your heart, and then pops your heart. Yeah, but you're jumping and you're prancing, but you already have the venom flowing in your system, and you're saying that the cycle is almost like self-destruct, right? Because you already received the poison in your blood. The only thing for that is an antidote, right? Anti-venom. And if you had to get there in time, because there's a certain time when a snake bites, you can actually get to a center where you can have the antidote. But when it gets into your body, it's just a matter of time, and you collapses, and then the snake goes and finds the rat and swallows it, right? Because it's already dead. You don't have to chase it down. And that's the strategy Satan uses sometimes. Sometimes people don't even have to go to their houses. Sometimes you're being sheltered by your house a whole time. And then in instances where they come right in your house, where you're supposed to be sheltered, where you're supposed to be protected, and they still find you. You know, they still find these children, they find these adults, they find these women, and they still strike on them. And the deadly blow, as we know it, is...
I think even, I guess, as we conclude on the process, maybe you could think about the boiling frog story.
Yes, I love that story.
You know, if you put a boiling frog in hot water, it might jump out. But if you put a frog in normal water and you just turn up the heat, gradually the water is being heated, and it's unaware,
it doesn't know,
right? That that the water is being heated, so it will actually die easier than if you put it in you know. So sometimes things happen like a long time, and you know, some people react. You know, you notice when there is a rape, some kind of murder, some kind of bad experience happening in the society, everybody's up and you know they make noise and so on. But while that might be good, the frog jumps out and he lives to see another day, there are some that are slowly dying because they are whatever they've been through now is this simmering and you know raising their temperatures. There are people who are in high society, who are in you know, who are big, you know, jobs and homes and you know lives, but underneath the little girl or the little boy still cries out at night, you know. So, you know, I this book had really allowed me to be able to, you know, to become conscious of the people that are around me, and to kind of understand that people are going through really, really difficult times. And if, you know, we can find a way to reach out to them, if we can find a way to help them through the process, then maybe, you know, maybe that's, you know, issue might be dealt with, because what the devil wants to do is to he wants a permanent place in the lives of those who are broken, right? He wants to hurt, right? So that, you know, the more we hurt, the more we refuse to forgive, the stronger the grip on our destinies become. Some people go as far as killing or harming the abuser, but then they become consumed with guilt and shame, and so on. The abuser is dead, but they still have to live, because it's not easy to kill a person. There's a thing that happens to a person.
So it's a cycle, vicious cycle.
You know, so this incident becomes both a natural and spiritual broadcast, a signal that keeps that spiritual airport open, attracting even more destructive energy. So it like you might think, well, they want justice, you will just go ahead and and do whatever justice, vigilante justice if you want to. But at the end of the day, you have to live with the repercussion. Plus, the feelings and the emotions and impact from the rape doesn't go away. So it becomes a compounded experience that makes that person's life even more miserable. So I mean, for us to understand the power of forgiveness, for us to understand the forgiveness is not about the perpetrator, it's not about the other person, it's about the individual who refuses to allow what has happened to them. I was saying to a young lady yesterday, just because you've been hurt by somebody 10, 11 years ago, you refuse to move on, you refuse to embrace anybody else, you refuse to love again. But that person who have hurt you, they go about their lives, they live their lives as normal. You hold on to that hurt, and wherever you go, you carry that person until you decide to forgive them. Then you have been set free from them, and then you can go on to live your life. So Satan strikes early, often when a person is younger or is young or just before they're about to ascend a height of destiny. So sometimes the enemy will come at strategic time of our growth pause, and at one point, if you may miss like the boat, it might come when you're about to go to university, or when you're at university, or when you're about to get a promotion, or when you're a particular job or something. Satan is very strategic, and he plays the long game, right? Some die on the stairs of success believing that they have failed. This is the power of deception, to convince you to surrender, guarantee success for a fleeting sense of failure, right? To choose silence over speaking out, to protect false pride instead of exposing the rapist to the system that supports them. So at the end of the day, it's like the person who have been abused now can decide, right? The stalker lives in secrecy and shame. But we are warned in 1 Peter 5:8 to be alert and to be vigilant, to be well balanced, because the adversary, the devil, is as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. Like I think it was a week before we talked about the antidote. He is the adversary. He's the one who stands up. He's the one who brings a case, upon you. So because you're being raped, he's gathering evidence. He's walking up about. He's seeking whom he may devour. Who can he devour? He can devour those who is already vulnerable, those whose doors are wide open, those who have, invitation on the door, come by me. And that's sometimes because we repent, we don't forgive, we don't, move on. At the end of the day, he is the one. He's watching everything. He stalks, he watches, he gathers evidence. And when he begins to make his point, he has every evidence. He for the ones who do not know what the blood of Jesus have done on the cross, they will, they will succumb. But regardless of what that antidote bring, that almost like a kind of, he wants to see how he can gather enough evidence against you to prove that you're not worth as much as you think you do. At the end of the day, God has already made provision for us, right? Next week we'll continue to talk about this talking power of rape, and allows us to be able to understand, there is certain people who the devil can devour, and regardless of what has happened to you, it should not be the end of your story. It can have a very beautiful end.
Yes.
Based on how you approach it. Of course,
you have to go back to Jamaica, the one with the blueprint, to erase the hurt, the pain, the scar from that those encounters. And you can find that place of restoration, because God is a God of restoration. Once you understand what has happened, once you're making sense out of it, and then you're liberating yourself from the spirits that is attached to it. And you might find us talking about spirits, but the unsaved Bible, we talk about spirits, right? Because we understand the spiritual, we understand the physical as well, because everything about us as human beings is both spiritual and physical. We are spiritual beings as well as physical beings. So a lot of times we don't have the perception for what is happening in the spiritual realm, right? But we just look in the natural realm. So we want to encourage people, even those of us who are out there, manage our sexuality, manage ourselves. That's why Paul talks about self-control, right? Paul talks about controlling yourself, managing yourself. making wise decisions, and really understanding that your actions has rippling effects and consequences, not just for you, but for those that are around you and those that you might have impact. So as we're sharing and as we're wrapping up, we're giving hope as well, right? Because it might seem daunting, it might seem our society is so built into this sexual drive and sexual identity, sexual revolution, that we can't come out of it. But we have to educate ourselves. The Bible is there, it's clear, and we have to align ourselves to what God has given to us that's beautiful and good. And the scripture says that Satan comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But Jesus comes that we might have life. There's a but, there's an opposite, according to the law of opposites, right? There is the law of life, abundant life, right? Not just life full of pain and stress and sorrows. That's why we have helplines like these, to educate us and to help us to thresh our anxiety. So we're going to turn back over to Pastor. So our closing comments. And of course, we've been talking about how rape is a stalker, because once you've been raped and somebody has that inclination as well, even if the person is a young person and they know breaking into it, they'll find you somehow. And that is a spiritual reality. And so we have to break that cycle as well, that vicious cycle, that we are not even be able to be seen and sensed in the realm of the spirit, by demonic and satanic allies in the natural realm. So as we tie this and wrap this up, right? We ourselves could be aware, even for those of us who have children as well, right? And even us as adult, those of us that are even married, we can understand better, not just take what people tell us in Christianity and what some pastors have preached. We made a lot of errors in the past, but we need to correct those errors and teach people the right things and let them decide, what's the best course of action.
I'll end with Peter's story. Peter, in the book of Acts, tells us about Peter. I mean, at that point, Herod was really on a killing spree. And now he had already attacked, at the end of the day, he realized that he succeeded in killing James, killing John. So he came to get Peter. And, at the end of the day, the Bible said that Peter was brought to prison. And there was a quaternion of soldiers guarding him. And in the same way, it's like whatever had held you captive, whatever would have, put you in prison, so to speak, whether it be an experience, whether it be, something else, some injustice that has happened to you, and the guards are there trying to keep you there. And the Bible said prayer was made on behalf of Peter. Hey, come on, somebody. Prayer was made. So prayer still is the most lethal weapon upon the face of the earth. The heart that is open, a heart that is genuine before God, can literally touch the hand of God and reach. And the Bible said that God sent his angel to get Peter out of the prison. In the same way, God is sending his angel to get you out of the prison, mentally, physically, emotionally, wherever you are. And at the end of the day, you say to this quaternion of angels, of soldiers, you have come across the wrong princess. You have attacked the wrong princess. For a woman or a man who can say, you know what, I know I've been through that, I know I've suffered that, but at the end of the day, I know that God is able to bring deliverance. And as you go through that process, God sent his angel into the prison, open the prison doors, release Peter from off his chain, and literally carried him out of the prison. We will talk a little bit more about that next week. Carried him out of the prison. There is a way that the Lord can reach you right where you are. You don't have to live in that prison forever. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to be silent. You don't have to be broken. You don't have to live like you're living right now, because God has sent his angels to rescue you right where you are. Father in heaven, we thank you for the opportunity of us being able to come before you. Father, you have given us this assignment. You know you are touched with the feelings of our infirmity. You know exactly what that person watching right now who's contemplating giving it all up, maybe contemplating suicide. But Lord, we rise up in our spirits and we ask God, send your angels like you did for Peter. You set the precedence. You did it for him. I know you can do it for that person, whether he be a male or whether it be a female. God, you know exactly what they need. Lord, let your angels carry them out of the bondage place that they would have been for some people from since childhood, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, so many years. And some people just lay it on in silence, but it never stopped rubbing, hey God, them the wrong way. Never stop beating them on the inside. Never stop allowing them to feel empty and broken and hurt and afraid and ashamed and as some people say, as they will say, damaged or dirty. Father, I pray, God, that you reach somebody right where they are. You didn't send us here just so we can talk about this stuff. You send us here so that we can alert the spiritual realm, the forces of evil, the stalker that has been assigned. Hey God, but we thank you because greater is he that is in us than he that is against us. Father, we thank you for that person watching right now. Wherever you are, however long it has been, God has sent his angel today to deliver you out of the prison wall. Hey, mighty God, so that when you show up, there will be they will be surprised that this is the person who have been through what they've been through. But God, I thank you for delivering, setting somebody free, and giving them peace. You know how long they've been broken, how long they've been hurt, how long they've been hiding, how long they've been silent. Lord, we declare the silence is broken and deliverance has come to somebody right here. Maybe somebody in the top echelon of the society, somebody who's never even spoken about what they've been through. But God, you can speak to them right where they are. God say, I have come. Hey God, in one portion he say, I come down. He come himself. He himself will come and deliver you. And I just pray that you give them peace in knowing that you have not forgotten them. In Jesus' mighty name.
Amen. Amen. And if you're joining that prayer, of course, you are at the verge of the point of your deliverance. And I know those of you that are out there, you might be contemplating what we've been speaking about this evening. There is hope, even in the midst of every darkness, even in the midst of satanic plot to destroy. God has made a way. He has given his word, and he has given you enough information to help you and to guide you. So we want to say thanks again for joining us this evening for the Threshing Floor Helpline as we continue to dig into the book Fallen Prisons, Bound Only by Silence, Breaking the Chains of Sexual Violence. And of course, we encourage you to continue to be locked into Hope 103.1 FM, 94.1 FM. And of course, we encourage you, wherever you are in the diaspora locally, to make your contribution to help this radio station to keep ministering to people all over the world, in our local context and all over the world. And it depends on you, those of you who have benefited from these great programs that we're bringing to you every week. So until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may make his face to shine upon you. Have a wonderful week. God bless.
And you as well. Have a truly wonderful
Have the
weekend.
pressures of life, stresses got you bogged down and depressed? Have you lost your hope to live purposefully? Are you in distress and life seems meaningless and troublesome? It's time to regain your mental wellness and receive power to thresh all anxiety. The IBA Threshing Floor Helpline is here for you. Join us on Hope 103.1 FM every other Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. with me, your host, Bishop Esther Baptiste.